Hi there, I'm Kim and I'm with Palo Alto Networks. I'm a solutions engineer for the live community and I'm here today with Tom Piens. Hi Tom.
Hi, Kim.
Very glad you could join me today. Although it's only virtual, I guess that's just the way it is these days. So Tom is the founder of Pan Gurus, which is a Palo Alto Networks VAR and partner. And he's also the author of 2 Palo Alto Networks books, Mastering Palo Alto Networks and Securing Remote Access in Palo Alto Networks. Tom was also a Palo Alto Networks TAC engineer back in 2010. He was the very first EMEA engineer supporting mainly the EMEA time zone. Tom is still very much engaged in the live community, even though he moved on. And he's a live community cyber elite. So again, Tom, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time to answer a few questions and help our live community members to get to know you a little bit better.
My pleasure.
So that being said, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is what was your first experience with Palo Alto Networks products?
Well, since I was the first international support engineer in EMEA back in 2010, that also meant that I was all by myself supporting customers back then. So my first experience was really immediately into the trenches and trying to understand customers' problems even before I fully understood the technology. So the learning curve was pretty steep, but that's also the reason why I'm still so active. The learning curve, although it was steep back then, was enjoyable because it's a very well built product. It works, and I very much enjoy working with all of the technology, starting from back then until we are where we are today.
It's very interesting. Now, knowing that we are today at PanOS version 10.1, what are we talking about in 2010? What version? What was the first version you were working with?
Back then, the working version was 3.1.4.
3.1.4.
So not a lot of features, much simpler times than they are right now. Nothing in the cloud, simple boxes, issues.
Oh dear. Sounds very interesting, very, very fun, very fun.
It was.
So what motivates you to keep coming back to the live community? I mean, you moved on from Palo Alto Networks, started your own company, but you're still very much engaged in the live community.
Yeah, that's another cool thing that comes with Palo Alto Networks. It's not just a cool technology, but the user community is very family-like. People are nice to be around. Everyone is friendly. Everyone is helpful. I've seen many cases where new users are actually helping other new users with similar issues. Everyone really comes together and does their best to try helping each other, which is an awesome experience. So work-wise, I'm still pretty much engaged with Palo Alto Networks, but on a private level, I really much enjoy community because the people are so awesome.
What is your advice for new users when they join the live community? What's your advice for them?
Well, there's plenty of stuff to browse around. There's lots of information on the live community. It's been gathering information for the past, I don't know how long, 12, 14 years. And there's really a wealth of information, but it's also very easy to ask questions. There are no stupid questions. There's no people fighting over issues. Most things are actually replied to in a very friendly and easy to understand way, which is why the live community is such a good place to be. There's just a very low step in getting your feet wet and getting any issues you might have replied to by someone that had the same experience as you.
What would be the number one thing individuals aren't doing but should do to secure their virtual worlds?
One of my pet peeves is a fairly common thing among customers, and usually it's because of time restrictions, not having enough staff or hands-on or experience to actually address that issue is how little, and I've seen this in the field too many times, people are implementing App ID. Auto infrastructure, PanOS, is built around App ID. It's an extremely strong and reliable and flexible feature. And many customers come from a legacy product that doesn't fully support App ID or at all. So in many cases, because there are time restrictions and there needs to be progress and things need to be swapped out hurriedly, App ID is frequently left alone in favor of functionality, but then forgotten about, which is a shame because there's so many things you can do with it that make your network far more secure by simply implementing simple checks. There's actually a little tool built into the GUI that will help you to find both in the rule base and as a little tool in the left-hand corner, the policy optimizer, that'll help you accomplish what you need to do. And yet still so few customers are leveraging that capability, which is a shame.
Yeah. So am I hearing you correctly that maybe customers are afraid for new things, are afraid for change? They're considering things like it's working, so as long as it's working, don't touch it, don't innovate, don't try new stuff. Is that a thing you often see in the field?
Yeah, usually when I encounter such an issue, it's mostly out of how would I call it? It's not laziness from the admin's side. It's more of a security, a personal security. If it works, don't touch it. Usually works. But in this case, a little bit of adventure doesn't hurt anyone. Because of the built-in tools and very strong logging capabilities, it's actually not that hard to figure out which applications are running through your firewall. And most of the time, App ID is not being implemented because admins don't think they know which applications are running through a rule. While there are actually tools there that'll show you exactly what's going on. But because either they don't know or haven't had the time to figure it out, or haven't had any possibility to ask the live community for assistance, for example, they leave that alone because it's dangerous to start adding applications just like that and possibly breaking something and making someone upset.
Right, I hear you. I hear you. What would be interesting to know for our live community members is what's your typical workday, your daily routines?
My current workday is pretty diverse. I support all kinds of customers. So what I usually do is I assist some of my customers in their more complex migrations. I have a couple of customers that want to implement Panorama, for example, because they started growing their firewall base. And at the start, they only had 1 or 2, which was easy to manage, but now they have 10 or even more. So they need a centralized managing platform. And it's a bit of a daunting task to import all of that stuff properly into Panorama if you don't know what you're doing. So they rely on people like me to come and assist. Other things I do, for example, are small audits. It's not really an audit, but more of a regular checkup where I help customers see if they implemented their new installation properly, see if there are any best practices we can apply, see if we can make what they did a little bit stronger, and stuff like that. That's my typical workday.
Well, sounds like you need like a 36-hour day instead of a 24-hour day, right?
Absolutely.
That being said, I hope you do have some free time. And when you do, what do you like doing when you're not working?
If I'm not working, which is a lot of the time, I like watching some sci-fi movies and TV series on Netflix and Amazon, whatnot. I like playing some games on my PlayStation or on my Switch with my son, if I do find the time. And in between all of that, I also try to write books.
I hear you. Now, what would you say is your superpower or your community superpower, if you have one?
I wouldn't call it a superpower per se, but one of my nicer skills to have is that I managed to find not too complex solutions for sometimes very complex problems. I'm good at solving weird and uncommon cases where something needs to be done and the only solution is either super complex or non-existent. And I really do enjoy finding solutions and helping people with a fresh take on an issue.
Yeah, I'm sure that many users agree with you and are very thankful for all the solutions you provided over the years.
Thank you.
That was basically my last question also. So I would like to thank you again, Tom, to have taken the time and allowed us to get to know you a little bit better. That's it from me. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you later, Tom.
Pleasure was all mine. Bye, Kim.
Bye-bye.